Hello. So this is gonna be just a build that I use for tanking in Tom, and I have never tried solo tanking yet, but this build is to aim for solo tanking. So we'll start off with my stats and my gear that I use in Tom. So first of all, let's start with the artifacts. I have 3 different artifacts that I use for Tom. It's gonna be the Halaster Blast Scepter, Wyvern Knives, or Charm of the Serpent. You want as many debuff actives you could use so that your DPS would be using their personal buffs instead of a debuff, which makes the run way faster. So I do switch between these 3 depending on which one I need. I could be using the Lantern, but I need to get that up first. But for the most part, I love using Halaster Scepter so that I could use this set in Tom, because you stand still for the most part in Tom. Even as a tank, you do move from time to time, but I just think that extra 5% damage when I'm standing still helps. And I do get a small burst of movement speed after I stand still, so that does help as well. Next is Tails Fold. The event is just about to finish, so if you didn't get it, unfortunately, it wouldn't really end the day for you, but it would be unfortunate because it gives a lot of HP. For example, if you use all the 3k power artifacts, like the Trobriand Ring, Staff of Flowers, and the Book of Wild Darkness, let's see how much HP it goes down to. It goes down to 806. But if I do use my tails, I gain almost 50,000, I believe. Let's see. Is that it? Yep, there we go. Almost 50,000. Which is why it's best in slot for tank, because the higher the HP, the better. Oh, also, and this is my stats unbuffed. Oops, sorry, I'm using the wrong companion gear. Where is it? There we go. I like using the defense one for tails because it halves your defense by half. So I try to get it as high as possible. But this is my current stats unbuffed, with no VIP, no food, no potions. I still need to get my armor penetration, my crit avoidance, and my accuracy for Infernal Citadel. Blah. Sorry, stuttering. Infernal Citadel. I can't say that word. God damn. Let's just call it IC. And I don't really increase my awareness and combat advantage as much. I don't think it's as useful as the other ones. I've tanked TIC before, but it gets pretty hard when you don't have cap on your offensive stats to hold aggro, especially when you're running with people with 200,000 power or so. And for ability score, everything on strength and con. Now let's start with helmet piece. Since I'm using this for Tom, extra 5,000 power is very helpful. I could be using this 5% extra damage, which will do more damage than this, but I do lose stats, and I don't think it's worth losing the stats for. So I kept this. And then Bark Hide, I could be using Lion Guard, but I do not have that yet. And my defense would just be overcap if I use this. So I'm keeping Bark Hide, which is best in slot anyways, because you don't get any mitigation as a Barbarian tank. So getting that extra 3% mitigation helps. And another one that I use for mitigation, I've seen some people use Lion Guard for extra power, I've seen people use the encounter or the at-will ones, but I'm keeping this one. Oh, and some people use the 3% range ones, reduce the 3% range damage, but this one gives the most stats, and it also gives you damage mitigation, which is very helpful for barbarians. And now, for my weapon, I'm still using burnish. I currently only have one piece, which is the sword knot, so I'm not gonna be using this until I get the main hand. And for modification as a tank, it would be nice if you could use Challenger Slash, because you'll be using that most of the time. And for your weapon enchantment, Vorpal is okay, Balthorn is okay, but I've heard Bronzewood is best for solo tanking. But as you can see, I don't have the 80 to spend. Also, I forgot about my armor enchantment. You want at least rank 10 Elven, or you could get rank 9, but rank 10 is the start of 30%. You can get a higher rank, but you don't get the extra stamina regen until you reach rank 14, I believe. So if you want to save AD, just go for a rank 10. It's not the end of the world. Now for my boots, extra power is also great. I could be using this for more power, because this one only goes up to 2500 power, I believe. And this has 5000, but once you use your action points, your daily, that means your power would go down 5000. So it's just nicer to have that extra power the whole time in combat. And now, my modifications for all my armor are of course HP, because tanks need, especially solo tank, you need as much HP as possible. And now for my artifact set, as I said, I just think that extra 5% damage when standing still is great, because when you're holding aggro, you end up standing still unless you move for those annihilation, but then you come back to the boss right away and you stand still for a good 10 seconds again, so extra damage, always great. And then for my utility slots, everything is tactical rank 13s, because you need incoming healing. And now for my rings, I'm using Ring of the Keeper to get as much defense cap as possible, and so that I don't have to use any defense ones. So that is why I'm using this, so I could use my comp gear to cap my other stats. Basilisk Ring, this one is also great, because it gives you damage mitigation like Barkhide. So every time you use your daily, you get more damage mitigation for 5 seconds. And extra damage mitigation as Barb is always great, because we don't have any, like the fighter or the paladin. And for all my modification, everything is stamina regen. So after you take a hit with your block, it regens as fast as possible. Now for my shirt, this is great because you want your daily up as much as possible. Just if you need to retake aggro, or if you think you're gonna lose aggro, you could use your damage daily. If you need to take a lot of hit and you need to increase your HP, Battle High is great. And now for the other reason for that is because the other ones doesn't give as much HP. So I'm using these for the HP. Same thing with the pants. It's for the stats and the critical avoidance, because you need 85,000 for barbarians to cap for Tom, and I just think that extra movement speed is great as well if I need it. And for these, there are the reasons I have not upgraded these. is because they don't give as much stats that I'd like them to, but I get the HP, so might as well just not spend the AD unless I have extra. But I'd rather upgrade my Lantern first and Lionheart once I get both of them, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna need 80 for that. So now let's go to powers. So the main powers I use for Tom is gonna be Punishing Charge, Come and Get It, Enduring Shout. So Enduring Shout is great when you need to take more stacks from Annihilation and increases your HP, which also increases your stamina. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have your your pally heal shields you, and the cleric puts that damage mitigation, you could take many stacks with just one encounter. You could be using Ignore Weakness to increase your stamina up as soon as possible, but that's the reason why we have stamina regen as high as possible as well. And the reason for the other two is just you could micromanage your aggro. You could start off with Punishing Charge if you want, and then start hitting to hold aggro. And then once you feel like you need to keep aggro more, just cast it again and start hitting. For at-wills, I like to use Sentinel Slash and Challenger Slash. And these are the feats that I use would be Challenger Charge, so that this gives me top aggro as well. And I'm using Threatening Presence instead of Mighty Vitality because this feat is broken at the moment. So more threat is always amazing. And then for my first feat, Sentinel Slash increases your threat generation for 10 seconds. So you could just hit once, and then you could count 10 seconds. If you need more threat, you could just use it really fast and start hitting again. But if you don't need it, just keep hitting with your Challenger Slash. For these, I don't use Sure Strike or Bounding Slam, so I'm just using this just in case I have to use single target for mimics, but I don't really use any of these skills. For this one as well, I don't use Not So Fast, so I'll just pick the top one as well. Crushing Advance, this is a decent one because it becomes a debuff, and it also doesn't knock back the enemy anymore. So it's great. Turns this into a debuff, and it's also good for taking aggro. And lastly, Sentinel Unstoppable. You use Come and Get It. So more Unstoppable is great if you need it. But in Tom, I try not to use my Unstoppable as much, just so it doesn't drain my stamina. Because if you have Unstoppable, every hit you take will be put into your stamina. And I like to keep my stamina as high as possible. So I don't use Unstoppable unless it's a DPS check, just to help out a bit, even though it's not much. So, and for daily, like what I said, this one is for debuff and for damage and aggro. And Battle High is just to take as much damage as possible. If I buff up... Oh, wrong one. If I do buff, I get 890k. But if I use my encounter and my daily at the same time, I get to 1,500,000 HP. That should be enough to take most hits. So if you have to take a hit on 9 stacks, 10 stacks, using those together might be able to help you. Now for boons, I'm still missing 17 to finish Focus Retaliation. This will help tremendously for damage, but as you can see I'm still missing some boons. So as always, you want HP as much as possible. Movement speed is also great for tanks. I'm using Companion Influence just to help with my stats. And I'm using everything else in power, because I think power is very useful to keep aggro. Guild boon, I could use incoming healing to increase mine, but that would reduce my HP. I lost 45,000 HP just because of incoming healing. But it could be nice with 57%. The paladin shields would be great. So I have not tested that out yet, but I will be trying both of them. But seeing that 890 HP seems great. Also, power is always great, because there's nothing else you could use really as a tank. This will put me in overcap, which is something I don't need. And I don't really need critical severity as a tank, so I'm just gonna keep power for raw damage. For utility, revive sickness if you have it, especially when you're in dungeons, but otherwise, use movement speed. It's great. For companions, this gives power and combat advantage, which is really good for any classes, really. I think you want power and defense, except for healers, because they want the outgoing healing bonus from the Polar Cub. But as a tank, you have a lot of options. You could use Deep Crow if you want. You lose power, but your critical strike, deflect, and awareness is increased. So now my crit is actually capped, but my power goes down. You could also use the Red Dragon Ironstone. Increases your HP, deflect, and defense. So I don't have it maxed yet. I'm not sure how much HP I gained from it really, but I'm pretty sure I could get to 900,000 probably. Maybe just right under 900 if I max it out. And what else can we use? I've seen some people use Owlbear, but mine is only in blue. It increases your accuracy and armor penetration to help you hit cap. Combat advantage is just a bonus. But for now, I like to keep my Boulet for that 85k defense cap. Now, bondings, the highest rank you could use. You lose a lot of stats if it's not rank 15, but use what you can. For companion gear, I'm not lucky enough to get the 1000 item level for this one, nor the 980 item level from Warden's Expedition. So I'm using this. As you can see, I'm using armor penetration on one of the offense slots to help me cap on my armor pen for Tom. And extra power is great, so I'm using empowered there. Critical avoidance, you need to cap your critical avoidance, or else you'll take a lot of damage from tanks. So I'm using some defense and deflect to help me cap it. I could be using other things like critical avoidance to help me cap for TIC, but enigmatics are too expensive at the moment, so I need to save up for those. And lastly, accuracy and deflect to help me cap with accuracy and deflect as well. And armor penetration deflections again, because I don't have enigmatics to put. Now armor break, I think this is the best one you could use. It's just an extra debuff. Defense, you want to be cap already, so you don't want to be using this. You want to cap your stats, so you don't want to be using any of these. Potency would be okay to increase your power, but I think Debuff for the bosses would be way nicer as it helps the whole party. So this is why I use that. For my offensive slot, Rhymefire Golem to help me cap on armor penetration and maximum hit points. On my 3 defense slots, critical avoidance is also useful, and HP is also useful for tanks. So this is a really good one to slot in your defense. Another one is the Red Dragon Iron Stone. Gives you HP and incoming healing, which is something you need as a tank. And now lastly, I have not upgraded this to legendary yet because I'm not sure which one I want. Do I want the extra power or armor penetration? But so far I'm gonna be using an incoming healing bonus anyways. And now lastly, the one that gives you the most HP in companions, Energon. If you max it to legendary, you get 32,000 HP. So you would like to be using that as well. And now for mounts. Let's start with my power. I only have one, Swarm. I didn't have the fortune to buy more than one account wide mount. And I think Swarm is the most useful for every single classes because it buffs your character and it debuffs the enemy, even though it's single target. I could have went for Griffin to help people survive. I could have went for T-Rex, but I think Swarm is the most useful one for any role. Tensor would have been nice too, but Tensor is not as good in groups. For this, you want HP, as always, as a tank. But sometimes I do like to switch it with 5% movement speed when I don't need the HP. Excuse me. So, if you could get the 50,000, it's the best one for tanks. But there's only one mount that gives 50,000 HP and it's super expensive, I believe. Triceratops. Yep, the cheapest one is almost 14 million. I don't think it's worth spending 14 million just for extra 40,000 HP for me. Because Barbarians do get more HP. Like we get increased 40% maximum hit points from our mechanics. So it's gonna increase my health a lot. I could probably hit 900,000 without buffs, but I don't think 14 million AD is very useful for that. I would just spend that to build on a DPS tune for myself. Now for insignias, you want Gladiator's Guile. I have 3 because this is best in slot for tanks, or even any role. Staminas are great. So yep, you want Prosperity or Fortitude on all your slots. Prosperity is way cheaper if you made it yourself, but there's no Fortitude. I mean, there's only Fortitude for HP on Illuminated. So that is why I'm using 2 of these, but they are too expensive. They're like 700,000 each. So for this one I would like to switch it, but I don't think 700,000 is also worth it, especially if you're only increasing your HP by 2,000. Keeping that as is. And for these last 2, I want to get Suna in the future, so I just have these 2. I don't think there's any other good ones, to be fair, other than Gladiator's Guile. So, yep. That is everything that I use. And lastly, for my foods, you could either use ham for stamina, caprice for HP, or the dew for action point gain, so you can have it up as soon as possible. And always get food from guild, from stronghold. You could get it for free if you farm influence, and it increases your HP, and it stacks with another HP one. So yeah, that is everything for today. Have a good day.